Good morning, class. This is Walker here at We Play Games. We're here in the Vicky 3 Academy. I'm just talking about Oman today. Do want to kick the tires. So Oman is a really interesting country. Not to go too far into it, but the version of Islam that they have here is not yet accurate. These are in fact Ibadi, not Shiite, but the difference is largely academic. Don't concern yourself too much with the details if you're just someone on the internet. But if you want to learn more, then I do encourage you to read the Wikipedia articles for these things. They're very good. There's a lot of good information in there. I like the fact that the public has access to better public information now. But basically, Oman, you have control of Zanzibar. Zanzibar, this is where Swahili is spoken. So Swahili is what would be known. It's a Creole language. So it's a combination of a lot of different languages based off of trading networks in the Indian Ocean. So when we think about trading networks in the Indian Ocean, I don't want to talk about this forever, but I think, again, it's important for everyone to understand the history of the thing, because I think understanding the history of the thing is useful insofar as it informs what you should be doing. And Oman, they were an important part on the trade network here. So Swahili, if you are familiar with the language, it is a combination of local languages, but also Arabic is thrown in there, and as well there's language spillover from Madagascar because of the Polynesian thing. And even because of the monsoon networks, there's some words and stuff from Indo-Aryan languages. It's just a really interesting language. And in Oman, you start with Zanzibar, but unfortunately it is going to become independent. So that's just what it is. So my recommendation with Oman is largely just position yourself to accept that fact. Focus internally, see what you can accomplish. You have a fairly large population with a reasonable GDP. I am gonna do fast hire. For the people for whom this is boring and you feel like I am wasting your time, you can scrub. But for the people who want to do research on their own, I think it's important that I demonstrate the use of the tool every single time. So we are here in debug mode, and if you want to just experiment around and see what it would look like if you did this or if you did that, you can do that. That is totally fine. That is absolutely totally fine. But if you want to do it quickly, and you just want to compress time and learn an incredible amount of information in a very short period of time, you do it with debug mode and fast stuff. Because then you can just see the impact of things. Because the fact of the matter is that so this is sort of also a response to a conversation I had on Reddit, because I was wrong about something, and it's really interesting because the theorized implications of something can sometimes be different from the actual implications of it. But it looks like the clout calculation is a little different than I understood. It still basically functions the same way, but it's a little different, and so I'm gonna have to experiment with it because I don't know anything about computer science, but I do know stuff about console, and I'm just if you want to learn about a video game, just use the console for a while. That's how you learn Paradox games. Just play God. Don't waste your time doing other stuff. Just play God, play around in the console. See what would happen if you did that. What would happen if you did that? What would happen if you changed the law to this? And then just do it. Don't play the game get through to there and then try to figure out what's happening and where all these inputs are coming from, because you're not really going to have the ability to test it, because all of the conditions will have changed. Whereas if you do it with fast, the conditions are basically the same, which kind of just tells you what would happen if things were the same. And so that's incredibly useful information for how to Walker's just been railing against having fun in this game for 2 minutes, but every single time I do this, don't listen to him. Just have fun. But I do think that console is a great way to learn. That's what I want to tell you. Don't listen to me when I'm saying you cannot enjoy this game, because you absolutely do. I enjoy it. I love it. It's so much fun. You do not need to listen to any of this stuff, but I think it's useful to know. That's why I record it. I think it's useful to know, even if I get myself worked up into a frenzy. We're talking about Oman today. So, know every single time, check what your ruler is. Do not ever make assumptions about anything. Always read this stuff, because this stuff's incredibly important, and if you skip it, then you're skipping incredibly important information. And the more information that you have when you play Victoria 3, because of how, really just unacceptably complicated it is, because it's insane. It's absolutely crazy. There's a lot of important information, and you should really know like what they are, what this stuff is, because you might miss stuff like the fact that your heir is associated with the ulema, and if you don't understand why that excites me, then I would watch my Kome videos, because the ulema are they're gonna drain power from the landowners very quickly when we're ready to do that. And we'll be ready to do that when he dies. And when he dies, we're going to lose control over Zanzibar. And when we lose control over Zanzibar, that's going to change control of the interest groups. So, like, you see how all of these things are cascading and connected? That's kind of the point, is that, like, to just talk about a guide for a country in a limited linear sense in Victoria 3, I don't think it's helpful. I think that there's so many things that are interconnected and complicated that you should be open to just like flexibility in thought. The faster and more nimble you can be in response to thought, the better, and that's why I like console. Because like this stuff is all true. Landowners, if you don't believe me that you can get the Shogun out really early, just play better than I did. I played like dog crap, like I always do. I'm a colossal idiot. I'm usually not paying attention. If you pay attention and you think hard, you can do a lot better than I can, I promise. There's not RNG stuff involved or cheating in console. I'm just really stupid and really lazy, and I want to talk about this. So, like, how far into this am I? I'm at 6.5 minutes, and I haven't even said anything. All right, Oman, important thing, your landowners, this time they're pacifists. That's great. That's incredible. I love it when they are. Because whether or not I'm doing battle with them or not is irrelevant. Because with pacifists, I can go into national militia. I do, however, need mandatory service, but that's all right. It's 23 months. So first tech, as Oman, it's mandatory service. That's a pretty translatable skill right now on 1.0.4. You usually get mandatory service and then get national militia. They're very powerful because they give you an enormous force that you can control the disposition and size of and like where they come from extremely easily. So they're incredibly flexible because like if you just don't care about, you know, like if you've ever been fighting wars overseas, it is obviously a lot better to have things coming out of a headquarters that's like next to it than on the other side of the world in case something bad happens or in case you get interrupted with an invasion by sea. Local strength is incredibly powerful, and national militia provides that local strength. And it also they're huge. If you get a big population with national militia, you just do stuff and smash things. It's not that hard. National militia is very powerful, but it does require mandatory service, which means that you're not going to be able to work on that for 2 years. So you need to find a different law to work on. Always be working on laws. That's usually important. It is actually, in fact, incredibly important. You're also going to want to get law enforcement after that, after the mandatory service. I know it's tempting to take line infantry, but I don't think you need to. I think you're going to pick it up with tech spread. I'm pretty sure. So then you'll go back over to here, and you've got urban planning and law enforcement. Hopefully you pick up one of those along the way, but you might not. At some point you are going to need to get academia, but you cannot afford it right now. So you do need to scale your production plan to the size of the economy that you are going to be governing, and you need to make it fit to that. So like right now, you stand to literally, after the secession of Zanzibar, you know exactly what you're going to have access to, right? You're going to have access to Omani Laristan. You have this, you're going to have this. What are your resources? Look around, take an eye. What do we have? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. We have absolutely nothing, chat. So what you need to do with Oman while you still have Zanzibar, I'm not going to do this because my time's like valuable and so is yours, so you can just do it yourself, but I promise it's true. Like just go around taking treaty ports from countries where they have the port building constructed, because then you take that building you just take it, and that's good. Because the more of those you have, oh yeah, and you have one over here. But the more treaty ports that you have, just the better. It's always good. It's always good. And if you're stronger than whoever you're threatening, because you'll need to get a navy that'll allow you to naval invade. So just build a navy immediately. Like right now you're at a 5 naval base. That's not enough. You can just start building naval bases. That's literally all you need to build. Just build naval bases and take treaty ports from people until you can't anymore. That's like the general game plan for Oman here. I promise. Just make sure that it's one that has a building in it. It needs to have the port building. If it doesn't have the port building, do not waste your time, because you're not getting construction points. Because when you take the port, you get the port, right? And if you have the port with the convoys, then you can do trading. And if you have the port with the convoys, you could trade for wood, which you're gonna need if you're gonna build a construction, right? Like, you're not gonna be able to like puppet a lot of people. Maybe you can, but be careful, because once the Zanzibar leaves, you're going to be very weak. And then if you have a couple of puppets, they might just overthrow you, and then you've wasted everything. So rather than building treaty ports are a very flexible thing. I think they're better the weaker you are. Just simply because of how expensive they are in terms of infamy and stuff at the higher levels. But it's a very, very powerful tool for Oman, because you can build treaties pretty well. So what's a good one? Does Aceh have a port? That's where I could edit. I'm not going to. I think it's important that people understand that I make mistakes too. I think I feel better when people see that. I don't want to hide that from the public. I want people to know that you can think really hard, and you can plan a lot, and you can put a lot of effort into things, and then things can fail. And I want people to know that that's okay. I want to take the treaty port from Aceh, right? Sure, why not? I could sound more interested, but like, this is the gameplay that you're going to employ as Oman. You're going to look to Southeast Asia, because that's where a lot of extremely valuable treaty ports are, and no one, depending on the diplomatic situation, which you should check 100% of the time before you start a treaty port war. But like, if you have a national militia and a 10 stack of navy, if you demand a treaty port from some of these guys, they'll just give it to you. You don't have to fight them. Just activate the national militia, threaten to invade them, and then demand treaty port and like war reparations, and then an open market. Don't make a puppet, because they'll back down most of the time, and then you're just spending infamy for nothing. But just take treaty ports from people, because when you take treaty ports from people and then Zanzibar leaves, you still have an incredibly lucrative commercial empire that you have built up. You just need to get some clippers, and you can trade for those, because you have a bunch of convoys, because you took all the ports from everybody. And now that you've taken all the ports from everybody, in 5 more years, you can come back and pick things over. You can look over the remnants of the things that you left behind after you took the treaty ports and say, hey, this would be really helpful if I had Brunei as a puppet right now. And then you can do that. And then because you have a port there, you don't even have to do a naval invasion. You just activate the army, and then you drop it there with a front, as long as it has the port building, because you're only taking ports that have port buildings. Then you can just deploy your troops there without spending a single construction point on it. You can conquer the nation pretty easily with Oman and national militia and just like threatening them. Just keep in mind that you are not powerful enough to fight a strong thing. So rather than assessing whether or not like these guys are necessarily happy or angry with you, try to do your best to make sure that the Dutch and the UK are either disinterested or cooperative. Like, just make sure that they probably won't intervene whenever you take treaty ports. But because you're only taking treaty ports, you're not going to terrify the AI, because you're really only taking treaty ports. And then by the time you've taken the treaty port and it's coming back around to like truce's downtime, they can't stop you. They gave in the last time. This time when you come back and you ask instead for them to be a puppet, they have to say yes, because you've activated your national militia everywhere. And now all of a sudden, because some of these treaty ports have a lot of population behind them, not that one, but I think the Aceh one has a reasonable amount. Yeah, you're going to get like 50k pop or something like that from Siak. Like, you're going to get a lot of pops, and you're going to be able to conscript a lot of national militia, and you're going to be able to just wander all over Southeast Asia and Indonesia with impunity. Just make sure that you keep the right people happy. That's all. That's all you need. And then Oman can just kind of just do that. You're going to lose Zanzibar. And so I don't think you don't have the resources to build anything pretty much other than just naval bases and invading. I really don't think you have the resources for anything else. But once you've done that, once you've taken a bunch of treaty ports and convoys and stuff, you'll see your economy will do very well if you can trade for stuff, right? Because you can do things like, all right, the fish, we could do this and just make it so that if you want to sell, if you want to hit this, if you want to sell this to us, you can't. We're not buying it right now, but you cannot sell it to us anyway. But this is saying like you can't take that away. That's my wood. Don't take away my wood. If you try to take it away from me, AI, it's not going to go very well. Do stuff like that. I'm not going to show all of it because you should figure out how to write a tariff bill on your own. It's a valuable skill, and if you can do it, you'll play well. Writing a tax bill, I go over this in every video, but writing a tax bill is really important for the nation because the tax bills are going to impact like what's going on over here. Because you take this tax of services literally just says, all right, if you buy that good and you live in Oman, then you got to give me some of your money. And then you just take it away from them, and then it's yours. But more importantly, it's not theirs, which means it does not count as part of their wealth. And their wealth is going to control whether or not they have more clout over here. You see that I mouse over to this, and it says wealth plus 134K. The more of their money we take away with our taxes, the better, because it weakens their ability to resist us. And we can do that with pretty high taxation levels too. Taxation levels are complicated, but I want you to think of it as this, rather than trying to think too hard about whether or not it's adjusting this, because you should not have severe economic problems if you play well. You should be able to recover from things. Sometimes you make mistakes, but like you absolutely can declare bankruptcy if you need to. You should never play badly enough where you get into a bankruptcy spiral. And if that's happening, then that's okay. That's not a moral failure. It just means that like you need to play more. This is a complicated game. I'm going to keep this at 20 minutes. So I'm going to briefly go over taxes. Low taxes are for when you need to pass laws with a low legitimacy government in place. So after this dude dies, after we get the national militia done, and after we probably get dedicated police force done, because we do want to get into appointed bureaucrats. We do want to get rid of slave trade. Those things are just bad. They're very bad. But I don't think we can get rid of slave trade until after the ruler dies, because after the ruler dies, we will have a different leadership here. It kind of depends on how long he lives, unfortunately. That's going to determine the difficulty of the run a lot. You want him to die as early as possible rather than as late. You don't want to deal with this crap anymore. You just want to go. You just want to take treaty ports. That's what you want to do. But yeah, you write some stuff. You write some tax bills that hurt the rich pops. You can tax food if you want to and you have it in enormous abundance. But I generally recommend recommend against that because it takes money away from the pops that do not support landowners, right? Because see here, this is aristocrats, clergymen, other professions. You just want to write tax bills that hurt them. That's what you want to do. You want to hurt them. You want to take your tax bills and you want to shove it down their face. And just figure that out. And that's a translatable skill that will go to like a lot of your country. Like just write tax bills that hurt your enemies. That's real life too. Yeah, all right. That's it. Oh, and pay your supporters really well. That's also real life. If you have non-hereditary bureaucrats, you do not want to do that with like insanely high. Maybe you do actually with hereditary bureaucracy. I don't know. Actually, that's a good experiment. You should probably run positive wages when you're in battle with a positive landowner, with a strong landowner, because this gives money to like bureaucrats who work for you, which increases the strength of the intelligentsia, right? Because it increases the wealth of the pops that support that IG. And so by paying high government wages, we give a bunch of money to the bureaucrats. And you can see they're bureaucrats. We give a bunch of money to the bureaucrats. And by doing so, we make the IGs different, right? You can change these IGs over here in so many ways. Don't worry about just bolstering and suppressing. That is the beginning of the game, not the end. All right, that's it. That's Oman and a bunch of other stuff. Bye.